Hello and welcome to another Drupal Easy screencast. My name is Mike Anello, and in today's screencast we're going to be demonstrating how to use Drush aliases. Now we're going to do this by actually getting the aliases file from Pantheon. So a little bit of setup that I've already done prior to hitting the record button here is I have a site up and running using DDEV, and I have the identical site also up and running on Pantheon. So the only thing that's different about these two sites is probably just their URL. And we're going to take advantage of the fact that Pantheon provides this button on your sites page to download Drush aliases. But more on that in a second. First, we're going to do a bunch of stuff on the command line to go ahead and get set up for this. So again, I'm running DDEV, so I might be using some DDEV commands here, but I'll try and make it crystal clear when I'm doing so. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the code base. And I'm using the Drupal Composer Drupal project template, which gives us a Drush directory right there. If we take a peek in there, we can see it has a sites directory. And if we take a peek in there, we see it doesn't have much of anything other than this self.site.yaml, which doesn't really contain aliases for anything other than the local site. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to download the aliases in a second from here, and we're going to move them into actually a Pantheon directory, which let's go ahead and create that now. Drush sites Pantheon. So that when we go to look at here, we now have a Pantheon directory. So we're going to go ahead and download those aliases file, and let's go ahead and just do that now. I'll keep talking about it. So we're going to hit that button, and this will actually download it to my local downloads directory. And when that's done, that got downloaded to my downloads directory right there. So let's go ahead and we're going to copy that, or we can move that either way. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy it. Well, here, let's move it. That's probably a better way of doing it. Let's move that. Downloads. And you can do this through the Finder or Windows Explorer, whatever you're comfortable with. We're going to move this into Drush sites. So now when we look in the sites directory, we now have this Pantheon aliases. Now, here comes a little bit of the tricky part, is if I'm going to go ahead and DDEV SSH. So I'm going to actually work inside the container, so you won't see as much of DDEV. And I'm going to make sure I'm on the project root. So I'm going to cd up a couple. Now, since I'm using the Drupal Composer Drupal project template, I'm actually using version 9 of Drush. Now, the aliases that Pantheon provides via that button are only compatible with Drush versions 8 and before. Drush 9 switched to a YAML file for its aliases. So if your site is using Drush 8 or earlier, then you're basically done, and you can skip to the past this next step. But if you're like me and you're using the Drupal Composer Drupal project template and using, more importantly, Drush 9 or better, then there's an additional step. But luckily, Drush gives us a command to convert the PHP style aliases to YAML style aliases. So, and it's just as easy as Drush site alias convert. So if we run that, we have to tell it where we want to put them, and I actually want to put them in that Pantheon directory. So I'm going to type that in, and it does a bunch of stuff. And now if we take a look at, oops, went too far back there, ls-alh into Drush sites Pantheon, you'll see I've got a bunch of YAML files. So the reason is that when I downloaded my aliases from Pantheon, it downloads aliases for all my sites into one alias file. It's more like a global alias file rather than per site. The convert basically breaks up, well, breaks up the PHP into individual YAML files. So at this step, you could probably delete all of your alias files except for the one for your current site. So if I were to do this step, I'm not going to do this step right now, but if I were, I'd delete everything except for this, DCO week 10 MTA YAML file, right? But that being said, you don't have to. You can leave them just hanging out there, and everything will be fine. But you do have to make one small tweak to the YAML file in order for it to work with Pantheon. So I'm going to go ahead and nano Drush sites Pantheon DCO week 10. And all we have to do is in the SSH section, after the options, we have to just add a TTY false. And you have to do that for all of your environments. So it's a little bit of a pain, but it's not terrible. It's only going to take me a few seconds here. And then one more down here. And we're done. So at this point, we should be good to, well, we're almost good to go, I should say. If we're using DDEV, this is a DDEV only step. We have to run the DDEV auth SSH command. What this does is this allows DDEV access to SSH keys on our local to be used within the container. In most situations, you can enter it just like this. In my situation, I have a lot of keys defined. So I've actually put the keys I care about, for this project at least, in a separate directory. So most people will not have to do this extra little -d till the SSH test stuff. If your keys are protected with a passphrase, you're going to be prompted to enter that. But once the identity is added, then we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get back into my DDEV web container. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and clear Drush caches. And we can see if our aliases have been found with the Drush SA command. And we'll see a whole bunch of stuff returned. And again, if you delete the YAML files for other sites, you won't see this many, and you'll only see yours, but this is a pretty good sign. So let's give it a try. Let's try doing a Drush, and we'll utilize our alias. So we do a pantheon.dco week 10 MTA, so that's the site name. And I want to run this Drush command against the dev environment of my site on Pantheon. Oops. And I just want to do a Drush status. And there we go. It was able to connect to my Pantheon site. And we can do something a little bit more interesting. If we come over here and look at the status report, we can see the cron was last run 14 minutes ago. So let's go ahead and run cron. Oops. So that looks like it was fine. And if we hit reload here, we should see this last run change dramatically. And sure enough, it was run 6 seconds ago, confirming that our aliases are working. Now, this is really handy if you're using the configuration system, because then you can do stuff like config import from your local command line without having to SSH into the remote machine first. Well, that completes this screencast. I hope you now have at least a basic understanding of how Drush aliases can be used. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.